Hello again, I'm Charline Sprouse, here to share with you a book my husband Marvin and I wrote in the early 90s, titled Connecting, A Guide to Great Relationships. The information in this session is still pertinent and speaks to the current issues of our society today. We dedicated the first edition of to our parents for teaching us lifelong lessons about loving relationships. Today, as we go to press with the second edition, 2013, we add our 8 birth children, plus 2 of the people in different children's homes we worked in, who chose us as grandparents for their children. So these 2 moms and 1 dad-to-be are Angela, Melissa, and Joseph. Their little ones are Corianne, Elena, and Raina. Our own 8 birth children are Alicia, Angel, and Robin, my 3 birth children. Then Marvin, 3, Amber, Lisa Kawai, Charline, and John Paul, who just got married, by the way. These are Marv's birth children. These lovely young adults gave us 13 grandchildren. Stephen, Summer, Sarah, Caleb, Kelsey, Kendall, Karsten, Colin, and Kyle, as well as Bridget, Cameron, and Charlotte, and last but not least, Isaac and Simon and Skylar. We also have great-grandchildren, and we're going to dedicate this to them also. Jeremiah, Alexis, Elizabeth, Autumn, Cheyenne, and Charlie. Quite a brood, isn't it? Okay, here we go, chapter 1. We used a prayer by Thomas Aquinas, and it goes like this. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Most people in 12-step programs recognize this prayer, and they just call it the Serenity Prayer. We have paraphrased this prayer just for this book, Connecting, A Guide to Great Relationships. It goes like this. God grant me the serenity to accept and enjoy the positive connections you give me, the courage to leave the negative enmeshments in my life, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the first chapter, we defined connection as a mutually empowering, solid linkage with another person, place, thing, group, or spiritual power base, reiterating that a connection must be mutually empowering in a positive joining, or it becomes an enmeshment. So an enmeshment, such as an alcoholic's enmeshment with alcohol, or any person who codependently becomes enmeshed with another, as anyone who has worked with or has had or experienced being battered. In some cases, the batterer is a female. Anyway, these people will tell you that a codependent becomes by doing everything for everybody, so that each of those people that they do everything for will need him or her. So, people in a connection keep the integrity of their own identity intact, whereas people who are enmeshed lose part of their identity, their own identity. There are cycles of frequently occurring connections. The cycle begins and begins again. In the book, we have an illustration of a circle, and at the top of the circle is the family of man, and then around a little bit is prenatal. In the next is the family of origin, your parents, going on around the circle to self, and then friends, and then the spiritual self develops, the professional self, intimate relationships, and the cycle begins again. In the next illustration, in another circle that begins with the prenatal, is down a little bit, is beginning of the dysfunctional family. And then after that is the addicted or codependent self. And then the negative friends. And then ungodly enmeshments with either drugs or Satan. It's not surprising that police officers are finding more and more of the satanic paraphernalia when they do drug busts. Drugs or satanic stuff are just about on the same level. Okay, here we go in that circle. The next part is using money as a higher power, and then failed attempts at intimacy, going through partners at an alarming rate. There's no way they can bond. Offspring who mirror enmeshments of their parents often either become drug addicts or codependents. If they only look or observe their parents and think to themselves, I'm not going to do or be that when I grow up, then they do not become a drug addict or a codependent. That doesn't mean that they don't still have those roots. There are groups called ACOA, that stands for Adult Children of Alcoholics. And these groups will help the ACOA understand whether they have become a codependent or whether they're depending on drugs, prescription drugs maybe, and whether they're doing anything on the ACOA list of symptoms. In 4 or 5 meetings, they can learn how to understand what kind of symptoms have been handed down to them from their family of origin. A person under the influence of Satan or drugs, the mood-altering chemicals, experiences an inversion of the values that most people have. And they have no concept of good, bad, right, or wrong. In other words, their value system is turned upside down and backwards. The next illustration is a pyramid with integrity on the first rung, loyalty on the second, family on the third, and values before drugs is the 4th rung. We speak of an addiction to drugs as an instant insanity. For one thing, you can't begin to talk to or reason with an addict. There are things that can be done to help the addict or codependent person see their predicament, however. Excuse me. Number 1 is to stop enabling. Enabling means to keep the environment so that the addict or codependent can keep using or overhelping. Some people call that tough love. In other words, you just stop helping them. It's not pleasant, but it works. Tough love is a great way to love your addicted person or your codependent. Something else we talk about in the first chapter is choosing joy. When we return on the next session to Connecting, A Guide to Great Relationships, we'll go into choosing joy. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you on the next session. Be blessed. Oh, remember, you can tune in again and again to livingbetteritv.com. If there are issues we discussed or something you think you will use over and over again, there are CDs that you can get and PDFs of each show. You can also like us on Facebook. Be blessed again.